Good morning, good afternoon, dear delegates, dear speakers, dear all. A warm welcome to the Trade and Biodiversity Statistical Tool, a webinar on trade and biodiversity data to support the Economic Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. I'm very happy to see many of you joining today. And so it's with great pleasure that I will start this webinar now. My name is Gloria Spezzano. I work at Helvetas as Learning and Innovation Advisor. And I'm very honored to be here with you today. Before we start, I have a few house rules that I'd like to present and like technical tips. So you are welcome to use the chat. So while there are presentations, if you have any comments or questions related to the presentation, you can post them in the chat, and then a burning question we can address immediately after the presentations. Otherwise, we will have a question and answer session later on. So we will be taking all the questions, and you will be really welcome to ask your questions and have any clarifications or discuss anything. If you cannot hear or see, I suggest that you close and restart the webinar and close out the programs. Also, for your information, this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sharing the recordings for further learning purposes. By default, your microphones are off, but as said, you can use the chat, but during the question and answer, you will be also welcome to unmute yourself and ask your questions eventually directly. So this is the agenda of the day. And we will have, first of all, opening remarks from Ms. Corazon de Jesus, Division Director of the Asian Center for Biodiversity, followed by opening remarks from Lorena Jaramillo, Economic Affairs Officer of the UN Trade and Development, UNCTAD. We will then go into an introduction of the BioTrade and TraBio Statistical Tool done by Lorena Jaramillo, and then a live presentation on the statistical tool by Diana Camerini, Associate Statistician at UNCTAD. We will then have time for some practical exercises. So you will be asked to do some little short exercises just to test out how the tool works. And then we will have also a question and answer. So you will be very welcome to raise your questions there. And we will be closing and then finish this webinar at around 10:30 European time, 5:30 Philippines time. I would like to give the floor to Ms. Corazon de Jesus, Division Director of the Asian Center for Biodiversity, for the opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Gloria. I'm delivering the opening remarks on behalf of our Acting Executive Director, Ms. Clarissa Arida. Esteemed guests and resource persons, ACB and CBD National Focal Points, members of the Scientific Advisory Committee of the ACB, representatives from the ASEAN member states, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good day. We thank the UN Trade and Development, or UNCTAD, the Helvetas Swiss Intercorporation, for co-organizing this workshop with the ACB, and the Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs for their financial support. As we know, biodiversity sustains life on Earth by providing irreplaceable services that support our well-being. More than just an environmental issue, it also directly impacts our economies and our future. However, global biodiversity is rapidly declining at an alarming rate, demanding our immediate attention and collective action. One of the key drivers of this decline is trade. Unsustainable consumption practices such as the exploitation of resources, illegal wildlife trade, unsustainable agricultural practices, deforestation linked to the production of different commodities, habitat destruction, and the spread of invasive species. In response to this crisis, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, or KMGBF, sets ambitious and actionable targets to halt biodiversity loss by 2030 and address its causes, including trade and unsustainable consumption patterns. The KMGBF also aims to guide governments in developing, updating, and implementing policies, goals, targets, and national biodiversity strategies and action plans. It also facilitates the monitoring and reviewing of progress at all levels more transparently and responsibly. As one of 18 regional and sub-regional technical and scientific cooperation support centers selected by the Convention on Biological Diversity, the ACB is expected to support the implementation of the KMGBF, the ACB through science, technology, and innovation. This would be impossible without access to comprehensive, accurate, and timely data that provides a clear understanding of our realities. This is vital in making informed decisions that will promote actions for the conservation and sustainable use of biological diversity. The importance of data and comprehensive database for trade and biodiversity cannot be overstated. As noted by UNCTAD, data is often one of the missing links in tracking the significance of biodiversity-based products in realizing global biodiversity goals. The KMGBF highlights the importance of data-driven decision-making, making tools such as TraBio instrumental for gathering, reporting, and monitoring trade-related biodiversity data. We eagerly anticipate insights from the speakers on how TraBio can enhance our understanding of trade flows and compliance with biodiversity targets, as their expertise will be invaluable in guiding effective policies and strategies for sustainable practices and informed decision-making toward the realization of the Global Biodiversity Framework. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your opening remarks. Now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Lorena Jaramillo, Economic Affairs Officer of the UN Trade and Development. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon to all. Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Gloria. Distinguished delegates, esteemed experts, and valued participants, I'm delighted to also welcome you to this important webinar on our Trade and Biodiversity Statistical Tool that was developed by the UN Trade and Development Statistics and the BioTrade Initiative. First and foremost, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our partners, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, ACB, and Helvetia Swiss Intercooperation, and particularly to the dedicated team for the excellent collaboration in co-organizing this webinar. We acknowledge and express our deep appreciation to the Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs SECO for their support and trust in UNCTAD's BioTrade initiative for almost 2 decades, as well as our partners at the national, regional, and international level. The importance of the connection between trade and biodiversity could not be overstated. Biodiversity is not only essential to sustain life, but also life in itself, as also highlighted by Che. Over 4.3 million people rely on biodiversity for their livelihoods, with 70% of the poor and vulnerable living in rural areas and depending directly on it. Biodiversity also supports over 50% of the world's GDP, valued at $55 trillion. And these figures only capture part of biodiversity's contribution, which is even higher if we consider, for example, its ecosystem services and intrinsic value. Biodiversity is also a key part of trade. The UN Trade and Development estimates that the trade of biodiversity-based products account for 17% of global trade, amounting $3.4 trillion in 2021, and representing 7% of the world's GDP. For developing countries, this trade is essential and represents over $1.4 trillion. In 2021, Asian total export to the rest of the world of such products amounted almost $1 trillion. The adoption of the Kunming Global Biodiversity Framework recognizes the need for a whole-of-society approach, where trade can also play a key role. Trade can contribute to delivering the framework's 23 targets and 4 overarching goals by incentivizing environmental, social, and economic benefits, alongside promoting sustainable production, consumption, and trade. As we will be highlighting in an upcoming publication by UNCTAD later, hopefully at the end of the month. The framework also underscores the importance of reliable and accessible data, as mentioned by Che. However, challenges remain, including the lack of comprehensive, accessible, and comparable trade data on biodiversity-based products and services. This data gap can hamper informed decision-making at all levels, from national to global levels, and across all sectors, including governments, businesses, civil society, academia, ultimately hindering global sustainability efforts. This is why it is crucial to assist countries in assessing and monitoring the trade of biodiversity-based products. To this end, UNCTAD has developed the Trade and Biodiversity TraBio Statistical Tool, which is the focus of today's webinar. The objective of this hands-on training are to enable participants to access information useful for their country's reporting or developing indicators under the Global BioTrade Framework, identify and understand the importance of trade and biodiversity-based products to their country's economy or even trade, such as its trade balance, growth in export and imports, among others. Provide relevant information to other trade development and environmental processes, including SDGs. This webinar is especially timely due to the upcoming resume session of COP16, which will start next week in Rome. TraBio provides CBD parties with a valuable tool and a source of information for their activities related to the monitoring framework, or the KMGBF, the national indicators, and the NBSAPs. In addition, TraBio can also assist government, researchers, businesses, and other stakeholders to determine the trends and value of the trade of biodiversity-based products since 2010, and it's important to national, regional, and global economies. I am confident that this event will generate an insightful exchange. I hope that we continue supporting governments and all stakeholders in promoting a trade that contributes to biodiversity and to people. Together, we can co-create a more sustainable and prosperous future that balances inclusive economic growth with biodiversity conservation and sustainable livelihoods. I wish you all very fruitful discussion. Thank you very much. Back to you, Lorena.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lorena. So now we can start with the content of this webinar. And again, I would like to give the floor to you, Lorena, for an introduction to the UNCTAD BioTrade and TraBio Statistical Tool. So again, the floor is yours, Lorena. Thank you.
Thank you again, Gloria. And I hope you bear with me today, colleagues, that I will be also speaking and sharing the work that we're doing at the UN Trade and Development. Next slide, please. Next slide. So let me start first by telling you what is UNCTAD, what is the UN Trade and Development. So it's the UN agency dealing with interfaith on trade and development, and we support developing countries to access the benefits of a globalized economy more fairly and effectively. It was created in 1964. We're part of the UN Secretariat, and we have, as a conference, we have 195 member states. Most of all the participants countries, we are part of UNCTAD. Every 4 years, we hold our ministerial conference. That's what we call UNCTAD 15, for example, that was held in 2021. And it delivers the mandate of the organization for the next 4 years. It's like the COPs, if you consider the analogy for the TBD. And this year, we'll be holding our UNCTAD 16 Ministerial Conference. It will be held in your region in Vietnam in October. So we look forward to see how do we engage more on this, on our Ministerial Conference. So as a response to Agenda 21 in 1996, so almost 20 years ago, UNCTAD launched the BioTrade initiative as a way to use trade in a positive way to contribute to biodiversity conservation and generate livelihoods. So that's how it launched BioTrade, but to ensure that the activities are beneficial to the environment, to the people, and not only to the economic angle. We developed the BioTrade and the definition, which includes the production, transformation, and commercialization of goods and services derived from biodiversity that adhere to a set of sustainability guidelines, which consider social, environmental, and economic aspects. And that's what we define as the BioTrade principles and criteria with a capital B and capital T. Next slide, please. So what are these principles and criteria? We have 7 principles. If you see on the left, the first ones are the objectives of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Number 4 is the importance of socioeconomic sustainability. Activities need to be to be compliant with the law, not only at the national, but also on international level. They need to respect the right of the actors of all involved. And then the clarity of right to use and access to natural resources. These criteria were developed and tested in early 2000 based on the experiences in Latin America, Africa, and Asia that the activities were starting, and were published in 2007 by UNCTAD. Since then, have been implemented in the ground for a variety of value chains. Due to the evolving policy development, and for example, the adoption of the SDGs, the Nagoya Protocol, and the Paris Agreement in 2018, UNCTAD led the update of these principles and criteria, and also to build on the experience of the partners that have been implementing these activities, not only for terrestrial biodiversity, but also for marine biodiversity. So this is the result of this 2-year process and is now being implemented by governments, private sector, and civil society to develop biodiversity-based value chains, businesses, and also sectors. And this is also what I wanted to point out is what it differentiates biotrade with a capital B and capital T from biotrade without it. Also, this framework is complemented by minimal eligible criteria or requirements that include, for example, we don't work with GMOs, we don't promote deforestation, and we don't work in endangered species or under the red list, for example, or in CITES Annex 1. We also wanted to highlight that in the COP 15.5 decision, the biotrade principles and criteria are featured and as a GBF Target 5 complementary indicator. And we just did an analysis of the 119 national targets that were reported as of 1st November, and only 7 countries report on this indicator. So we just wanted to point out loud that this information is available and it can be also used from other countries. Unfortunately, no grant from the ASEAN region. So we hope that this also webinar helps to raise awareness about the work that we're doing. Next slide, please. So how do we work? So we translate this the Sustainable Development Process SDGs, or at that time it was the Commission of Sustainable Development, or even the MDGs. We translate them and the mandates of UNCTAD, MEA's objectives, into a set of principles, criteria, and indicators. These are used to assess sectors, value chains, and companies, where you identify what are the needs and size the opportunities. We normally work at different levels. It can be at a sector or value chain, normally implemented and monitored by partners, such as national and regional programs, and you start all the way from end consumer to the production. And these are normally the components of a program where we're working, mainly in Latin America, also a little bit in Asia when we were working with Elbeta. And then the principles are also used to assess a specific organization. So particularly, for example, you assess a company against the principles and criteria, you develop a work plan, and you follow up. This is also done, for example, in Peru, where they have a label, or with the Union for Ethical Biotrade, where they also have a certification scheme. Next, please. And we always say, next. Biotrade is crucial. We don't work only with UNCTAD at the headquarters, but we really implement with partners and activities in the ground. Next slide. So just to give you an idea of what biotrade is, the principles and criteria and how they're implemented, they can be adapted to biodiversity-based products and services. It had been used particularly meant for the food sector, functional foods, phytopharma, personal care, but they're also been used, for example, for sustainable tourism and scuba diving in Latin America, or in textiles for alpaca fiber that came up right now that Peru is using it. The implementation of principles and criteria through partners, including the Union for Ethical Biotrade, is now being implemented in value chain and in around 80 countries in Africa, Americas, Asia, and Europe. We have seen how the significant growth of the turnover of companies that are implementing biotrade has spiked after COVID. And in the last 20 years, we passed from $40 million to almost 41 billion in 2023. So we have seen really how all the interest and the market had expanded. And we look forward to continue working on that and helping to promote biotrade principles and criteria. Next slide. So that's really, in a nutshell, what biotrade is about. I will now zoom in into what is TraBio. Next slide, please. So as mentioned by Che and also in my welcome remarks, trade data, particularly related to biodiversity, is generally scattered, heterogeneous, and not easily accessible to all stakeholders. And sometimes it is even more for biodiversity-based products trade. And to fill the gap, we developed a TraBio Statistical Tool with the support of the Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, and we joined forces with the Statistics Department and the BioTrade Initiative. The goal of this tool is to contribute to addressing the trade and biodiversity gap, complete data on bilateral and multilateral trade flows of biodiversity-based products, plus related indicators, which facilitates a common understanding and comparable analysis. Particularly, it aims to provide access to a harmonized data set related to biodiversity-based products in UNCTAD, enables a better understanding of the significance of trade and biodiversity-based goods, and, for example, informed to formulate policies, strategies, as well as multilateral environmental agreements, and mainstream the sustainable use of biodiversity and its contribution to the economy. Last but not least, it aims to gather, report, and monitor progress on national and international policies and development process and targets. Next slide, please. So the TraBio is based on the harmonized systems, and it provides information starting from 2010 up to most recent period available. We just updated, for example, in January this year, we just updated last month the database, and it covers over 1,800 biodiversity-based products for over 185 economies. It includes three components: the product list and the product classification of biodiversity-based products, which cover 1,800 biodiversity-based products, and that's what we call the universe of biotrade, of the universe of the products that are being listed in TraBio. We have the online database that is open data on bilateral and multilateral trade flows and the indicators, and then a visualization tool where it's interactive. We provide interactive map and charts so that it's very easy for everybody to see the information that is available, and it's a user-friendly and intuitive way to access information. The work that was done to develop this work, UNCTAD not only uses expertise and knowledge in-house from the work that's been doing on trade and biodiversity, but also we conducted extensive research, expert consultation. We did a pilot phase and organized webinar with partners and experts as we develop all this process for a couple of years. Next slide, please. So the universe of biodiversity-based products, it includes all products with a biological origin, terrestrial and aquatic, meeting at least one of the following criteria, so that it's intrinsically and integrally based on biological resources, like, for example, cocoa beans, when inputs of processed products that solely or principally use biological resources-based ingredients, for example, wood and furniture. When they are derivatives, they're mainly from biological source-based products. For example, we consulted there with trade experts, and we identified that the soap that contain glycerol are mainly traded in the global market are based on animal fats instead of synthetic. And then it excludes products without biological origin, like minerals and metals. Because of the whole list of the products that's quite wide, we created the product classification that includes 13 groups divided into 18 subgroups, then divided afterwards to 230 categories and 79 subcategories. These, just to give you an example, in there you see the 13 product groups. If we wanted to go to subgroups, for example, we select live animals and plants. And then in the subgroup, we select live fish and aquatic invertebrates. In the categories, we can go to fish, and then to the subcategories, we go to ornamental fish. So that's the level of details that we created this classification. And that's a publication where you can download and get further information about it. Next slide. So we also have here the online database. That is really like the core of TraBio, and that's where you have all the information on the trade flows of biodiversity-based products and key indicators like import, export, trade balance, trade of biodiversity-based products at a share of total trade. And this is how you will see in the, and Diana will show you later, and all this was updated on the 10th of January. Next slide. And then we also have the visualization tool with the maps and charts, where you can get information, for example, on the total global exports of biodiversity-based products. But in here, I wanted to put an example of the export of the product group classification, perfumery, cosmetic, and personal care, and room care preparation, where you can see all the main products that are exported as of 2021. You can select the years, it's quite easy. And then you can also go to a regional analysis. For example, below I did a region, or you can read regional and national analysis, where we selected a few countries from the ASEAN region from 2021. And then you see most of the countries, for example, are trading products and beverages, but also natural ingredient is quite important. Next slide. And this is something we also wanted to highlight, that as part of the post-2020 process that led to the adoption of the KMGBF, we also proposed an indicator on the trends in the legal trade of medicinal plants. And through this Trade and Biodiversity Statistical Tool, you will have that type of information on the trends of export of medicinal plants. And here we just prepare a general analysis of the different regions, considering data from 2020 to 2022, and then we just prepare this graph, but you can actually do it for your country, for instance. And this is, they wanted also to point out that even though that you have this tool available, we only identify from the 190 national targets, only 3 countries are using this indicator. So unfortunately, nobody from the ASEAN region. So I hope that through this webinar, you will see also the usefulness of this tool, and that you have it already available and can help you directly use it as a national indicator. Next slide, please. Also, as part of the work we wanted to do, TraBio provide information on trade flows, but we wanted to see how to move a step forward on how to improve the collection of data on the commercialization and trade of biodiversity-based products and its socioeconomic and environmental impact. That's why in late 2023, UNCTAD convened the Informal Working Group on Trade and Biodiversity Statistics. It includes around 80 experts and represents over 50 institutions and 18 member states. So far, we have held 5 informal working groups between 2023 and 2024. We have a mapping of global databases of around 40 databases linking trade and biodiversity. Working either of these topics, we also try to identify further the consensus of what are we talking about the biodiversity-based product, and the scope of measuring this impact of the commercialization and trade. And there's a lot of discussions and work that has been leveraged at this part of this group, including sharing of experiences from around the world on how trade and biodiversity statistics tools and experiences are being implemented. Next slide. So I wanted also to share with you one of the key results that we have achieved so far. So we have defined the scope and coverage. So the definition of the biodiversity-based products, it was discussed within the group, and they kept the definition that UNCTAD proposed. If you wanted to assess the impact of trade and commercialization, we need to cover different stages on the value chain. So not only the latest stages, but also prior from the ecosystem harvesting, catch, cultivation, so previous stages. And you also did an assessment of the, for example, indicators under the KMGBF and the SDGs, to assess which ones can be also relevant from a trade-related aspects. Future work streams and current potential work that was prioritized is the importance to work on classification and standards. to understand, to have commonalities on the definitions, to also have data and indicators that are relevant, and data dissemination with new technologies so that that information is more known to everyone and accessible as well. And right now we are working with the members in drafting a working paper on enhancing trade and biodiversity statistics based on all the experience of the work. Next slide. Thank you very much for your attention, and I remain here for any questions or comments you may have. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorena. Very clear and very informative. Thank you very much. I see that there are no questions so far in the chat. So as mentioned, please feel free to add your comments or your questions in the chat, and we will take them then later on. We will have a question and answer session, but if you do have any burning question, you can also start writing them now. Right, otherwise, I would now like to pass to the second part of this webinar, which is a live presentation of the TraBio Statistical Tool, which will be delivered by Diana Camerini, Associate Statistician at UNCTAD. So now, please, Diana, the floor is yours. I will stop sharing so that you can start sharing your screen.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me well. And yeah,
yes.
So without any interruption. Thanks a lot for being with us. And this practical part will be dedicated for you to browse TraBio Statistical Tool and the baseline data set that is being used to construct the TraBio data visualization tool. This is a tool very important that we built, as Lorena was saying, in the past, to facilitate not just the extraction of data, but also analysis and facilitate evidence-based policy making in the development of policies for biodiversity-based products and for trade in those products. So I'll share my screen now. I hope it will be visible and clear. Is it okay?
Yes, we can see.
Can you see it? Perfect. As mentioned by Lorena, we have TraBio. TraBio is a statistical tool that is based on 3 pillars. First of all, it's a classification and a selection of over 1,800 products of biodiversity based on the classification, a harmonized commodity description and coding system by the WCO, which is the classification of commodities that are being traded. Second, TraBio provides free access on trade flows and market indicators on biodiversity-based products that are available on UNCTAD Data Center. And third, TraBio, as you can see in this webpage, provides a data visualization tool with 3 maps that allow you to facilitate your understanding and extraction of information regarding trade on biodiversity-based product. Let's first start with the baseline data, which are used to build those maps. The baseline data are available on UNCTAD Stat Data Center or quickly accessible from the TraBio tool from this link. You can directly click here, and this link provided in this page, Trade and Biodiversity TraBio database, will directly send you to the relevant UNCTAD Stat Data Center, where we have a selection of indicators for that we have developed for trade and biodiversity-based products. We have information on import and export of biodiversity-based products. So of those 1,800 products Lorena was mentioned, to the detail of the 1,800 product. And these products are being grouped in 13 groups categories of biodiversity-based products. We have indicators and data on the BioTrade growth rates, annual growth rates. We have also information and it's possible to download data on BioTrade as a percentage of GDP on an annual basis. We have BioTrade as percentage of total trade, so how much is important BioTrade compared to the rest of the merchandise trade you could do by using and downloading this data. And also we have a series of market indicators regarding this data. For example, the market concentration indices for export and imports product is measuring the degree of concentration of exports and imports of a product around a few markets, or whether it's traded more homogeneously by a larger number of countries. A value close to 1, we can just already show or later show, is indicating that export or imports are analyzed products are highly concentrated around a few markets, while a value close to 0 reflects more homogeneous distribution of market shares among economies. For example, if I click here, I'll see this page for the market indices for concentration of import and export. This table, for example, on market indicators is available globally, is not available by country, because we want to see how much certain products are being concentrated, certain trade is being concentrated around certain products at the global level. We have other indicators, for example, the structural change indices of export and imports, which show you how much this is being changed over time. The reveal comparative advantage index, which is an indicator available by country in this case, that shows how competitive advantage of a given product is compared to the ratio of product to the total export of all goods, when this exceeds the same ratio for the whole world as a whole. And then a product concentration. So if here we are showing the market concentration, so what are the biggest markets, or if a certain product is being concentrated around export and imports are concentrated around a certain market, here we see how much is a product concentrated around a single economy. So this is a different point of view. I think the most important indicator that we have is the import and export, and I'll try to show you a little bit around this. Here, for example, we have a table dedicated to import and export of biotrade. The latest updated data have been latest updated in 10 January 2025 and refer to up until the year 2023, when we got the best quality data from member states. Here you have a list of biotrade products. You can see the 13 categories if you close each of this category disaggregation. And here you can see a view of the year. The UNCTAD Data Hub and Data Center is designed for this table to be flexible, meaning that you can design your own table and change what characteristics you see in the row and in the column. For example, here we see in the row the products shown here and the years, but we could potentially see something different. And I'll make you an example. So, for example, based on what we get, you can see, you can see what we can obtain. For example, if we, just one moment, be a little patient. So if we, for example, a Ministry of Environment of your country would like to understand the value of export of biodiversity-based products of the category natural ingredients and food and beverage from one country, and select what are the biggest important country, you could do that. For example, if the focus is on 2013, we could select the year in this tab and just select the year 2023, sorry. And we just apply. Since this is a filter, we have just 1 year, we want to show in the column the export and the import of those products. To do so, we go to the design table and we move the column of year, which is 1, as a page filter, and we want to show the indicator as a column. The indicator will tell us what is the import, the flow. So what is the import-export flow and the balance. So if we apply, we can see This is a global pattern of global import-exports and the trade balance of those products. But what about if you want to see from the perspective of your own country or the region? In this case, we could go back to the design table, select economy, and for example, we can select the region of Asia and Oceania and apply. In this case, we will see the total of the region. But we said that we want to focus on certain type of products, such as the natural ingredients and the food and beverages. So to do so, we should go to the category product, do a selection from this drop-down menu. So unselect the product and select only the desired one. So food and beverages and natural ingredients, and apply. Here we just see the detail of each product, but this is still at the region level. If you want to see country by country, we just drag this product below and we bring the economy at the row. In this case, if we apply, we should see for each Asian country, for food and beverages and natural ingredients that could be selected separately, what are the EU exports, the imports, and the trade balance for the year 2023, having as a partner the economy, the world. We could potentially see for a certain country also what could be the import. In such case, for example, if we choose the first one that is shown in the table, Kazakhstan, we could simply select Kazakhstan as an economy. By typing Kazakhstan here, we should go to individual economy and then type or select only Kazakhstan. Or just browse and check it. This as a page filter, and we can see, for example, the product or the partner economy. So, for example, here in the partner economy, we'll see what is the country where the country that where the products from Kazakhstan, from food and beverages and perfume, are being exported. So we can see here that we are talking about natural ingredients for the country of Kazakhstan for 2023. Which are the regions and which are also the countries we could select, for example, the exports from Kazakhstan to the South America or the Latin American, Caribbean. We can see selected products if this data are available. Just be reminded that all this value provided in TraBio are based on US current dollars, meaning that we have data only on the value and not on the volumes. This because the original data from customs on the volumes are not meant to be or considered to be strong enough to be published. There are potentially data that could be extracted from customs about the volumes, but these are not strong enough to be published. That's why we chose to focus only on the value. So this is a demonstration for what is being concerned regarding the TraBio Statistical Tool. Let's go now to the maps. So what is being shown in the TraBio. If we go here, we have 3 maps, as I was saying, where this data are being put together and shown quickly. The first map shows the exports and imports, and with an arrow that indicates the top 3 bilateral exports, with being the arrow size the same as the proportional to the value of exports. We could select here the economies. For example, we could select India, and we could select also multiple economies here. If we want to show more, like for example, let's say Thailand and let's say Philippines. Here we could see what are the export in this case, because this selection button is on the export value of each country, for example, Philippines to the United States, we could see quickly that the total biotrade is being valued at $6 billion US dollars. In this case, for example, we see India to United States. We can see that the total export of the total biotrade is being valued at 22 billions. And the rest is for the other countries. We could also show the imports, where we can see on the map the top 3 countries where products are being imported, and the country under analysis are these 3. So, for example, for India again, we see that India imports a total biodiversity products for 7 billion from Indonesia, and this is among the top 3. We can see the more countries and select those countries that are not among the top 3 in the data center we have seen before. The second map is dedicated to show what are the top products from biodiversity that are being traded in the country. In this case, we show also the subcategories of products. Lorena has shown this map in her presentation, selecting showing the perfumery products, and here we can see or select what are the main export for each country, the main exported products, and see the corresponding value in the bar charts below. Here we could also select the economy that needs to be shown or we want to show in this tab below. So the selection of the economy, for example, we could select for perfumery, Korea. We could show also Bangladesh, let's say, and we could show Indonesia. We could show Nepal, for example. I'm just showing some countries of the region. If you want a specific visual to be shown now, we could do that. So here we can still see the same visual. And then here we see what are the value of exports for these subcategory of products. The various color indicate what is the main product by value being exported in this case, because we are on the tab exports on each country. For example, if we see the detail for Asia, the top perfumery, cosmetic and personal care product being exported, we are in the tab export by China, is this yellow, meaning cosmetic preparations. The same for most of this region, we see that cosmetic preparation are the most exported products from biodiversity of this category. While we see other regions, for example, India and Sri Lanka and Western Asia, more focused on personal care preparations. And we see instead some countries in other regions that rather have perfumes and toilet waters, for example, Spain, Morocco, and this Mauritania that have as the biggest perfumery and cosmetic product. So we can extract a lot quickly, very quickly, we can extract a lot of messages from you could do with the selection of a country. And once selecting the country, you could see the million of US dollar for the export. Here is from the import, what is the main, and then here it just shows not a color on the main product anymore, but the shade of this green just shows what is the size of and the value of import and export. So this table would not change. It will just be easier to compare and to quickly see what is the biggest exporter of perfumery. For example, we see France very high here, like with 20 billion. And we could, if we selected, France will be 100 here. On the third map, we see instead the trends. So we see the trade balance, export growth and import growth, meaning we could see the variation of import and export on selected biodiversity-based products for each country. And we could see what share of exports and imports these have. And also we could easily visualize the share of GDP. For example, here we have a series of selected economy where we can put in this, that we can indicate here. For example, we want to show Malaysia, China, and then, for example, Bhutan. Other countries, we have statistics, for example, Bangladesh. So we can see the statistics here, and also we can see data gaps whenever they are. And the statistics will show here, for example, the share of GDP. We see in this case that the share of GDP of biodiversity-based products, the total of them, is very high for Bangladesh and is higher, for example, than Malaysia, or higher than other countries, but maybe lower. But we can also see in all these three maps, and I'll conclude quickly, that you could potentially see also the variation over time and see what is the situation for different year. From this bar, you could select the year. Again, this is just a way to quickly extract information from the data set so that it's easier to extract and to bring some visual also for your presentations, or to show what are relevant sectors or relevant products that are being traded or being exported or imported. So this is just made for you to facilitate your understanding and extract easy messages. I will now stop here because I think we are running a bit late, and maybe give the floor for continuing the presentation and just doing a little practical exercise for you to familiarize with TraBio and the UNTAStat data center and extract your own statistics. So I'll stop sharing here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Diana, for taking us to this tour of the tool. I think that there is one question up in the chat that we can then address later on in the Q&A. But Rudy, are there other questions perhaps now, or if you do, all the participants have questions specifically to Diana on the tool, you can raise them now, because then we will do a short practical part and a short exercise. So it's, yeah, definitely if you do have questions or you need clarifications before we move into the practical part, the time is now.
So far we have two questions. One is about most of the crude extracts are traded under Michelin's tag of the HS code. How we can trace it? So that is the first question. And the second question, can we generate regional maps like Southeast Asia? And here I think Diana, especially the second, but probably also the first question, I think they go to you. Can you maybe provide an answer?
Regarding the regional maps, TraBio doesn't provide directly as a focus on the region. We can select the economy. So we could select potentially just the economy, but you can magnify, for example, let me share the screen again, so maybe it's easier to show. This is the screen, yes. So you could potentially magnify a little bit the map. We don't provide yet any focus on a specific map, but for example, you can see more details about regarding these maps. You are always are able to do the analysis extracting the data by region, and this is possible. This is being provided by our data center, so you could quickly see the data. You don't quickly see for any specific region on this map, because it would have been more complicated
Do you want to share the screen? I don't know if
to
you're
construct. Sorry?
You wanted to share the screen while you're doing this, or?
Yes. So we have here, for example, the map. You could magnify it. If not, it's not super. You could potentially magnify it, but there is no button dedicated to the single region. But you could rather do it, as I said, directly on the data, and you can select the region here. You can definitely select the region, not just the economy. When you design the table, you could select the region here. If you go back, so here is for the economy, but you could select here Asia and Oceania, for example, and apply it. And this will show you not just Kazakhstan, but also allow you to select also Asia and Oceania here from the drop-down menu, and also sub-region, for example, Eastern Asia or Southeastern Asia. And this is always, all the manipulation and the variables are available in the design table. We could also see in the economy, I think there are biotrade countries, so countries that adopt biotrade principle, and also countries part of the Convention on Biological Diversity. So this is also an interesting feature that we do. There are plenty of regional groupings and also type of economy grouping that are being offered by our data set that are quite flexible. It may look too much, so you have to pay attention on which type of economy here you select, and you could do potentially yours. Regarding the other question, I'm not sure about the crude extract being traded, being under HS code. But if you give me some time, I'll look into the TraBio and look where these exactly are classified. It may be under miscellaneous or not. I'm not sure. So I'll just take a look. If you have any specific product or HS code that you would like to look at, we could see where this is being classified in the certain categories or certain groups of where that we organize the 1800 HS codes in our classification, and then we can check. Yeah, maybe Lorena has already a reaction.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for the question. And just to complement, also, it's true that some of the biodiversity-based products are included in the general category. But what we have seen at the country level, of course, TraBio can provide you with some information, but what we have seen at the country level, for example, in Peru, they have developed like a 10-digit HS product classification that can be applied to different countries. And in there, they are tracking, for example, the trade on specific biodiversity-based products that the country prioritizes. So that type of information can be obtained, but it has to be done at the national level with this 10-digit disaggregation that can be registered. That is something, an area that we think it's important to see how do we harmonize to work at this further. Right now, we're only working at 6 digits, but it can be also the national classifications as well. Hope it helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Lorena. Yeah, it seems that the questions were answered very good. Thank you very much. So as we mentioned before, now Diana has given us a tour, and I think what would be nice now to do is a little practical exercise where we have selected a question that you can see now in the screen. We have a practical case. So let's assume that the Ministry of Planning and Investment of your country would like to understand the trends of the trade of biodiversity-based export products in terms of trade value, and how much this trade represents your country's GDP and total trade. So we have seen from Diana how to look for this information. We would like to give you a few moments to go into the data hub that Diana showed, and that was pasted also as a link in the chat, so that you can perhaps start seeing where and how you can get this information. We will give you a few moments for this. So I will keep the question, this practical case here. And if you want to go into the links that Diana posted now again, so to this data center, and try to find this information. Then we can see that together, and you can let us know whether it was easy to extract or whether you had challenges, and we can see that with Diana. So now I will stop talking and I will give you a couple of minutes to go through this case. Thank you.
So I've already prepared the solution, let's say, to the 3 questions. So first of all, we'd like to understand the trends of trade in biodiversity-based products in terms of trade value, which is the only statistics available here. So basically, we can just shape our table so that we have here the economy, meaning the country of, in this case, export, and here the years, the various years. In the filters, these are the filters that we have in the design table. We could also select, for example, the imports, and in case we want to see the imports, but the exercise was focused on the exports. Here, for example, to obtain this table, I just simply designed it in a way that the row contains the economy, in this case, the economy reporting economy, the one that is reporting the data, and the economy of export. The year, because we want to see the trends, and left in the page filter the product, flow, partner, and indicator. The product is a total product. We could potentially do a selection of it by going there and say, for example, selecting some product. The flow in this case is all flows. I can decide to only have shown in the table one flow and not having the possibility to select other flows. The partner could be any partner. And the indicator in this case is as the US dollar. So here, in terms of economy, I also had a selection of Asia and Oceania, just to make it quicker to visualize just the countries in the region. So you will see your country probably here. And you can see in the table, if you scroll it, you see the latest trends. Of course, all these tables is something maybe I forgot to show, are downloadable in CSV format. You just can select the pivoted comma separated value, and this will download very quickly. So you can see that, for example, I'll show you the result. How the table looks like. You will have in the download, you will have a table with data and a table with metadata. And you can see, for example, here, you will have your data available with economy, the year. Just pay attention that if you say so in the system, you will also download the footnote for every year and the missing value for every year. But you basically have your own data for your own analysis. Then if we see the second type of statistics required as a percentage of GDP, you could simply go, let's go back and redo it again. You could simply go into trade in biodiversity-based products, select biotrade as a percentage of GDP, and here you will have all the countries. You can decide just to focus here on a specific economy or groupings, for example, regional groupings, and select Asia and Oceania and apply. In this case, we don't have percentage of GDP for all the products. We cannot select specific products from here, so you will see the total products, but you have total biotrade, so total trade in biodiversity-based products, the 1800 we have been mentioning so far, and you will see how the trends is over time. So you can also scroll and go at the bottom of the page and scroll for the most recent year. And this is, I think, a very important indicator. The third one is about as a percentage of total trade. In this case, what you can select is also the economy here. So you can select Asia and Oceania, for example, and have only a specific focus in the table for the region. You can select the year, and you can select the flow, import or export, whether import or export are, what are their share of total trade, of total exports or total imports respectively. And also here in this case, you can select the partner economy where you're trading. For example, if you want to see what is, as a percentage of total trade, the biggest partner here, you could do that potentially. And you can bring also this visual up in the row. For example, if you want to select what is 2023 biggest partner in terms of percentage of GDP for the total trade for a certain economy, we could potentially drag and drop this partner here. The years doesn't matter anymore because we selected one, so we drag and drop in the page filter. And here you will see for each regions, but also individual economy, what is the biggest export as a percentage of GDP, total export for each country for the total of biotrade. We can see, for example, from Asia to Europe. So the partner can be also selected as just Europe. If we go just to partner, we could select simply just Europe, North America, and let's say also sub-select this region and apply. And here we'll have the Europe and all the detailed economy countries, country by country. And here we see the exporting economy and the partner economy, so the countries that are importing for 2023 as a percentage of total trade. So that's very important. For example, here we have like a huge percentage of total trade for Uzbekistan, for example, for Europe. So that's very important to countries to have a snapshot on how much is relevant biotrade as a total trade, as a percentage of total trade in their economy. So that's pretty much it. I hope it was clear enough. But if I went too fast, just let us know via chat so I can redo some procedures to select those data.
Thank you, Diana. There is just a quick question from Rudy that I maybe just will read aloud. So can you visualize the table as a graph?
The table as a graph is available only for certain statistics, which are being provided in TraBio Statistical Tool. So it doesn't do automatically. Let me share the screen again. We cannot directly produce a table based on the data selection, but we can see at the bottom of each of those tables, for example, we could do that. We could do that also as a percentage of GDP here. Share of GDP for a certain economy. We have seen that before. For example, we could do Kazakhstan. And we have seen before Uzbekistan, I think.
Thailand as well.
Oh, it was the share of exports. I think it was Uzbekistan was big towards Europe. Uzbekistan. Or we could do other countries, for example, China or Japan. If you want a specific country to be shown, we could do that. And you could do that, for example, the share of GDP, how it will be, and then you can see here. So you can potentially extract this table, this graph from here. You can copy paste it, you can take a snapshot of it, you can just show it. You will not be able in the visual to have a lot of parameters because the visual will become very heavy to process and also very slowing down the portal as well. But you can see, for example, the evolution over time and can select it.
Thank you, Diana. Thanks. We had another practical case prepared that I think, considering the time, it'd be nice, Diana, if you could show directly. That is about what are the trends in the trade of medicinal plants in your country in the period 2010-2021, for example. So if you can show us how to extract data on the trade of medicinal plants in a country in a set time of data.
Yeah, we can do also by the map, and so we can have a snapshot of the map. But for example, here we can
please share again because we don't see the description.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
For example, we could do that starting from the map, so it's easier and nicer to see. We could potentially here select in the first map, we could select medicinal plants. Or maybe as pharmaceuticals. In the pharmaceutical, we could see here the top countries, but we can also see the three top exporting countries. For the trend, for example, this is in case Belgium, but we can select other commodities. But for the trends, we could potentially go here and see the growth. This map, pharmaceuticals, and then we will have just to see how has been, what is, for example, the growth rate from the previous year for certain countries. We could, for example, randomly select those that have data, for example, Cambodia. You could select, for example, Australia. We could select Japan or those countries that have, like in this case, for example, Pakistan, we haven't shown so far. So here we have medicinal plants selected, sorry, the pharmaceutical selected, which is medicinal corresponding to medicinal plant. I think there are subcategories more specific, but I'll show the total pharmaceutical.
If you go to natural ingredients, that's where the medicinal plants is. And normally for 2021, it's natural ingredients.
I don't think it's available, the specific detail.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Where?
Natural ingredients. Check natural ingredients.
Yeah, we cannot select the medicinal.
And then you see medicinal plant is below.
Yeah.
No, it's in the map below, in the image.
Yeah, in the maps. Yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly.
Yeah.
Then you see medicinal plant is the first category. And then for 2021 is normally the data where you have more countries reported than for 2021.
So we can see, for example, here the selection. So we can see how is the trend of the trend compared to last year. Then for each table. So here we'll see the value of any export and export value, etc.
Yeah, thank you.
Here we can do an extraction of the table, but I don't know if the time allows us.
Maybe let's open the floor for if there are questions. So we
Yeah.
Otherwise, if there's still time, we could do that. But just if there are any questions from the audience, you can ask them now. Now that you've seen a little bit how this works in practice, you may have like more specific questions. So please feel free to either write in the chat or to unmute yourself also, and then ask directly your question. Yeah, Rudy, I will let you go through the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, so we just got a new question, which is how can we properly cite this tool when we utilize the data for analysis? And I believe, Diana, there is an indication on the website how to actually cite
Yes.
data to reference it in research paper or whatever.
Exactly, yeah. You can, in a research paper, just refer to UNCTAD Data Center or UNCTAD Statistics. I think there is an indication specifically on the series on the website. You could do that potentially.
We have one question in the chat.
Yes, so it's do we get the volume data of the export imports?
I think I mentioned briefly before that we are only have value data available. This is due to the origin data. So customs data, unfortunately, do not have detailed and accurate data on the volumes. That's why most of the data are missing in the source data of this database. The source data is based on UN ComTrade. UN ComTrade statistics post all the statistics on all trade in all merchandises. And you can see yourself, if you go directly on UN ComTrade, that volume data are quite missing or shaking. There are in some work that is being conducted by UN Statistics Division regarding the volume data of trade of all merchandises, including those merchandise. I think is still work in progress, and we hope we'll have more accurate data to post concrete, and also we can do aggregation by region with volume data later on when this more accurate data will become available by the countries.
And I just put a follow-up question here about the prices per unit. I guess they are also not available.
We have some data on prices not part of TraBio, but it can be explored in other data set. We have prices data in UNCTAD Data Center for selected commodity. We don't have a dedicated section for TraBio, but it's a good point, and I think it could be explored in the future as an extension of TraBio with prices as well, if we could provide an extra statistics for prices. I think the challenge there is to putting different data sources together and selecting which data source is feeding the prices. It's quite complicated, the price the construction of price tables, and you might have multiple prices for single commodity, single country. So that could be a part of exploration for the future. Yes, thank you.
And okay, so now we are coming really to the end. But before, of course, we would like to have closing remarks. And for that, let me share again the screen. We will have Ms. Lorena Jaramillo for closing this webinar. Thank you, Lorena. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much. So thank you very much, Gloria, for giving me the floor for closing this webinar. On behalf of UNCTAD, ACB, and Helveta's Swiss Intercorporation, I would like to express our gratitude to each of you for your valuable contributions and engagement in the webinar today. The discussion we have had underscored the crucial role that accessible, reliable trade data plays in supporting the KMGBF's implementation and promoting sustainable trade. I would like to extend special thanks to SECO for their support, which has been instrumental in enabling UNCTAD to pioneer its work on trade, biodiversity, and statistics, including the development of the TraBio Statistical Tool. While we face challenges in addressing the data gaps, tools like TraBio can provide valuable information and contribute toward a more informed decision-making at every level. With the resume session of COP16 just around the corner, the exchange we had today is particularly timely. We hope the knowledge gain will support your and other stakeholder efforts to implement and monitor the KMGBF, raise awareness on the importance of biodiversity, particularly the trade of biodiversity-based products, to national, regional, and global economies, and mainstream biodiversity to all sectors. After this training, we will be sharing the presentation and other material with all of you. We also welcome your feedback not only on this webinar, but also on the TraBio Statistical Tool itself. Your input is very important for us in helping us to refine and enhance it. Also, your input will be very crucial in strengthening our efforts to promote TraBio and enhance its use. We plan to host an additional webinar and create accessible online material to ensure everybody can benefit. We would encourage you to visit our website and follow us on social media for the latest news and updates of work in trade and biodiversity, including these upcoming training sessions, and also to go into the TraBio Statistical Tool so that you can play around with the tables as Diana showed us today, but also with the graphs and the infographic. That is mainly what I normally use. So we look forward to ongoing dialogue and collaboration as we work together to build a future where biodiversity conservation, sustainable livelihoods, and inclusive economic development goes hand in hand. We sincerely thank you all for joining us today. To those of you traveling to Rome, we wish you safe travels and a productive and successful meeting. Thank you very much.